Welcome back to the Stephen Knight Show. Our next guest recently released his book, Forget Having Kids, I'm Having Fun, which is a book about making choices about living life, and about giving life. Please help me welcome the author, Dane Reid. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you having me on your show.
Absolutely. And so you sent me over the audiobook version, and I was able to listen to a lot of it. And it is, I really didn't know what to expect, but it is really good. I know you're a voiceover. You do voiceover work as a profession. And so it definitely played into you telling this story, to you reading the book.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'm really glad that you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So tell before we get into the book, tell everyone about you.
So I'm a professional voice actor. I've been doing voiceover for 18 years. And as a voice actor, you're a natural born storyteller, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we do. We generally take other people's stories and narrate them, whether it's in a commercial, whether it's in an audio book, whether it's in a corporate narration. We tell stories. And that's what I've specialized in doing for 18 years, actually all of my life. And because I've always enjoyed writing. And so I took those two things, that ability to tell stories, and I wrote it down. I told a little bit about my life, a little bit about my friends' lives, and I put it all together in this story, Forget Having Kids, I'm Having Fun. Yeah.
So what was the inspiration? Because it's a kind of controversial subject, just because of the way society is. What was the inspiration for you deciding to write this book?
You know, one day somebody asked me, so why don't you have kids?
Yeah.
And I was just like, I had a bunch of answers in my head, but I didn't know which answer was right for that person.
Yeah.
Right. What you don't want is to get into a whole argument with someone about choices that you make for yourself.
Exactly.
But a lot of times people really will get upset or animated about things that you do for yourself. Right? Oh, what? You don't have an iPhone? You don't have the right color bubbles? People get really upset about things that don't actually affect them.
Right.
And so I thought about it. And during the pandemic, a lot of ideas came out during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
During the pandemic, I started thinking about parents. And I have a lot of friends who are parents and the struggles that they were going through, dealing with educating their kids while they're still trying to work, navigating this life, working from home for the first time. And it was difficult for a lot of people. But for me, I was chilling,
Right.
And they would say to me, Dane, you're lucky that you didn't have kids. And I would say to them, yeah, you're right, I am. And because it's a difficult job being a parent. And that's one of the things that people don't tell you. People tell you about all the rewards, but they don't tell you about what you have to sacrifice, or they say that it's worth it. And for some people, it really is worth it. I believe people when they tell me that the best thing that they ever did was be a parent.
Right.
But I also believe people when they say the best thing that they never did was to be a parent. And you have to understand, because we're all so different, you just have to respect everybody's choices and understand. So this is bridging the gap between parents, child-free people, and society, and understanding everybody's perspective of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was listening to the book, I love how you use the words child-free, like a child-free life. You don't think about that. You just think about people that don't have kids. But it says, forget having kids pushes the boundaries and examination of such topics such as parental rights, corporal punishment, expectations versus reality of being a parent, and the high cost of raising kids. Because, I was watching the news this morning, they were talking about how much over a child, from having the child until they're 17, you can spend on average over $300,000.
$300,000.
Including inflation.
That's the price of a home in the United States.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And
you get You get 30 years to pay for the home. You only get 18 with the kids. You know?
Exactly. But I like we talk about the expectation versus reality. And like you said, you don't have kids, but you have a lot of friends that do have kids. And know in the book you talk about being able to travel to this, lavish trips and these great vacations, and then your friends are living vicariously through you, and then their conversations about their children's soccer games or football games. Talk about your definition of reality versus the expectation versus reality.
So I'm a traveler. I love traveling. I've gotten on a plane and gone to New York for 2 hours and then came right back. I mean, I've done a whole bunch of wild stuff, met some strange guys on a trip, and then flew all the way around the world to go hang out with them on the other side of the globe. I've done a lot of crazy things, and it's because I don't have those responsibilities. But people don't tell you that you're going to have to give up that ability to do those things. People tell you things like your kids who's going to take care of you when you're old, right? When in fact, what's going on now is that baby boomers are having to take care of their kids because of the financial crisis that happened in 2008 and what's going on right now. Only 10% of nursing home people get visitors, right? So we're not always being honest about the way that things are. But then there's also, what happens if your kid has special needs, right? And your kid won't be the one taking care of you. You'll be taking care of them for the rest of their life, right? So there's a lot of things that, people just tell you the joys, and they don't ask you, who are you? Right. What is it about life that you love, right? Well, that thing that you love, you may have to give that up if you go for this. And for me, I looked at it and said, I may be the best dad in the whole wide world, but nothing's broken right now. Why fix it? You know what I mean? Why fix it? It's fine. So the expectations versus the realities, people don't talk to you about the lack of sleep. They don't talk to you about bratty kids. They don't talk to you about bratty teenagers, right? But we all know that teenagers are bratty, and we all know that, the terrible twos are a hard time. And then there's, like I said, there are kids who just have different mentalities. And, one of the chapters in my book is Jeffrey Dahmer versus MLK, right? And it basically says, you don't know what kind of personality type you're going to end up with. We all want MLK, but we may just get Jeffrey Dahmer. Right? So you don't know, right? And we think that that's a response to some kind of trauma, or the parents didn't do something. But there is a difference between a psychopath and a sociopath, right? So, you just don't know, right? And most of the time, our kids turn out at least average. Right. Most people don't end up being MLK, and most people don't end up being Jeffrey Dahmer, but there's somewhere in the middle that most people end up being, right? And that's the reality of it. But you have to be ready to be excited about the MLK, right? And you got to be prepared for the Jeffrey Dahmer.
Exactly. And one thing Jeffrey Dahmer said, that he does not blame his parents at all for anything that the way he ended up. He doesn't blame it. They did nothing wrong. But you also talk about the pressures that women face and feeling like they have kids versus even men having that pressure. How would you explain the differences or even the similarities when it comes to the pressure women have versus the pressure men have?
The pressure that women have is 10 times more than the pressure that men have. And the pressure that child-free men have is still great, right? So I can only imagine what women have to go through when people think, in spite of the fact that women have progressed so much in professionalism, in travel, in academia, et cetera, society still reduces them to baby ovens, right? And if they don't produce children, then you're worthless. You know, you're not fulfilling what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Well, we've progressed so much in our society, and we all have different roles, and you just have to respect those roles,
Right.
you know. Not everybody is meant to have children. In fact, most people probably shouldn't have children. If everybody went through a licensing program to have children, there would be a lot less children.
That's very true. Very true.
Because most people are not qualified, right? Most people are not qualified. Most people are not qualified to financially support their children,
right?
Emotionally support their children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people are not qualified to support their children in the education system. How many parents go to PTA meetings?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Right. True. So let's we're not being honest, right?
Yeah.
But we want everybody to do this, especially women, you know.
Right.
And I think I don't think that's fair. You know, I don't think it's fair when it happens to me, but then when it happens 10 times more often to women, as if that's their only purpose, man, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I totally agree. I totally agree. You know, I watch every morning, you don't know this, but I watch CBS Mornings, right? And one of the anchors on there, Tony Jacopo, he was talking about he and his wife have decided they didn't want any more kids. And so she thought it was on him because she's always in charge of what's the word I'm using for? Contraception, excuse me. And so she said, you know, the onus is always on a woman. How would you get a vasectomy? So he got it, and he was saying how now it's the fun without the risk. And there was a comedian I saw today on another show, and he was talking about, you know, not wanting to have kids and whatnot. And so in your book, you talk about a vasectomy, and although it can be reversed, it's not easy to reverse it. No. And you had talked about in the book about you never wanted to do something you felt was permanent, you know, to that extent. Talk about that.
So it was kind of like a catch-22. So I had a vasectomy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I've always been the kind of person who didn't want to do something that I couldn't get out of, right?
Right.
So it was like, oh man, it's not as simple as, you know, a draw 2 and Uno to go backwards, right?
Yeah.
So I had to contemplate this deeply, but then I considered some of the situations that I've been in my lifetime, and it was like, oh no, I'm not going back to that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I feel like for men, we talk about things like fathers' rights, right? And we talk about some of the sad situations that fathers are involved in.
Right.
And for men, the best thing that you can do is take control of your own destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So when I considered taking control of my own destiny, when I considered having been at the mercy of someone who we mutually agreed to have sex in whatever fashion,
right?
But then they have total control over what happens after that, I was just like, no, I'd rather be the one who's in control.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'd rather make the decisions for myself. Exactly. So what I say to men is, if you're going to have children, have as many children as you are going to have, whether that's 1 or 2. And then afterwards, cut it.
Cut it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't get yourself involved in more situations that you can handle, right? Don't be Nick Cannon. Don't be Nick Cannon, right? Don't be Elon Musk, right?
Right. Because we always hear about the oops baby, the oops, you know.
Right. Oops.
The oops baby. Now, let's talk about dating for you, because I know in the book you talked about different women you've dated, and I believe you talked about a woman who she didn't want children, at least initially, but it was more so until we build the life we want, and then she may consider it. Do you feel that that's a conversation you have up front? Because, you know, there are a lot of women who their goal in life is to be a mother. And so talk about having that conversation and when you would have that conversation about, well, you know, I don't want kids and I've had a vasectomy.
You know, I'm going to tell you a funny story. I got a buddy who he's married, right? He had a vasectomy after they had 2 kids and never told his wife.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But, I think I think we're grown, right?
Yeah.
We're all grown,
Right.
and we have to be honest with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when entering into, look, let's be real, right? As men, when we meet a woman, we never sit there and say, "Oh my gosh, she looks like she could be my baby's mother."
Uh-huh. Right.
That's
Right.
not the first thing that comes to our mind, right?
Right.
You don't say, "Oh my goodness, she looks like she's got some incredible conversation." You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I'm not like, "Yo, Steven, you see that there? She looks really intelligent." You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
not something we say, right? Initially, when we meet a woman, we're looking at, things that pop out, curves and all kinds of things, right?
Right.
Long hair, stuff like that, right? And I think initially our objective for a lot of men anyway is a sexual objective, right? But I think what happens with us is that we meet a woman and then we get to talking to her and we're like, oh my gosh, she's pretty awesome.
Right. Right.
This could be my girlfriend. This could be
Yeah.
my fiance, my wife, And a guy like me has to say, yeah, you could be my girlfriend. You could be my fiance. You could be my wife. You could be my baby. No, forget that.
Right. You're not going that far.
Get that last part.
Right. Because I want to make it clear. I don't want people thinking that you wanted to have a child-free life means you didn't want to get married because you met women that you thought was going to be your wife.
Yeah, I've met some incredible women. I've dated some incredible women. And I think I've always wanted to get married. My parents, were married, me growing up, and that was a model for me. But I just, the instinct to be a dad just wasn't there, right? So as a mature adult, you put everything out on the table when you recognize that this relationship is a serious relationship.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? Have that conversation and have a whole bunch of other conversations about sex, about your relationship, your career goals, how you handle your finances. Like you have to have these real conversations,
Yeah. And you talk about your parents being together a very long time, and then your brothers, they all have kids.
My brother is,
Yes. So how was it in your family accepting your decision to have a child-free life?
So I think the fact that my brothers have kids make it easier for me.
Right. Yeah.
So my dad's not like, oh my gosh, I gotta have grandkids.
Right.
Yeah, I think 9 or 10 grandkids, My mother, same thing, she's got grandkids. So I think it makes it easier for me. And I think my parents know my backstory to a large degree, right?
Right.
They know the things that I've struggled with, coming into adulthood. I'm very, very frank about, things that I've gone through in my book. I talk about depression and anxiety that I've dealt with. I've talked about my financial struggles that I've had in my book and just finding myself. And by the time I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm really coming into myself, but I really enjoy me, So the fact that, my brothers had kids, it definitely made it easier. And I also shared the story of my brother, Julian, my late brother, Julian, who passed away in 2020.
Right.
And my brother's daughter's mother stopped letting him see his daughter in 2012, right? And he spent $100,000 in legal fees. And when he won the case, she picked up the daughter and moved to a different place where he would have to start the case all over again.
Yeah.
And he never saw his daughter again. And he talked about her all the time. Me and my brother traveled to China and to Brazil and other places, right? And every time he talked about his daughter and how much he missed her. And the next time his daughter saw him was at his funeral in 2020. 8 years. 8 years. She was 14. And that kind of thing plays into my mindset as well as one of, I say 1,000 random reasons why I decided to be child free. That's definitely one of the top things.
Absolutely.
You know, because looking at my parents set an example that was high. You know, the bar was high. And
Yeah.
so if I'm going to be a parent, I'm doing all the things that they did, the PTA meetings, the community board meetings, volunteering,
Absolutely.
all of those things that they did, sitting down at the table and doing homework. And I never wanted, like I said, one of my chapters is I never want to do math homework again. Right. Like my parents sat at the table, you know, my mother, oh, God bless her, you know, because I wasn't easy on her, you know. But I would want all of those things to happen because of the example that I had. And living up to that would be tough. You know, a lot of parents do it halfway. I'm not a halfway guy. I'm not a halfway guy.
Let me ask you, what feedback have you gotten from the readers for this book?
What was your feedback?
I thought it was very, you know, it's interesting when you are you know, discussing a topic, or, you know, again, I was doing research for this interview, and then I started seeing, like I told you, Tony DeCoppel on CBS Mornings talking about his vasectomy. Yeah. And then the comedian today I saw on TV, he now has a daughter, but, you know, I think he had a stand-up comedy show on Netflix a few years ago, and he's talking about his kids, his friends encouraged him to have kids, and he said, I see your life, I don't want that. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I think it's definitely a good conversation, especially for people wondering why individuals don't want to have children, or why they've chosen to have a child-free life. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's their decision. Like you said, it's not affecting or impacting anybody else but you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I thought it was great, and I love the way you narrated it, and, you know, and read it. It was very entertaining. I caught myself laughing out loud, you know. And
I want to. If you didn't laugh, I didn't do my job.
Yeah, no, I definitely did. And but no, I thought it was great. But have you heard any other feedback from other listeners?
That's the feedback that I'm getting overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the reason why I wanted to know your opinion, because that's what I'm getting. People are like, this is hilarious. Parents love it. Child-free people love it. You know what I mean? Because parents are looking at it like, yeah, my kid does that, and they're laughing about it. You know what I mean? This is not a threatening book at all, right? Like, people see the title, and, you know, if you don't read the book, he hates kids, right?
And it's not an anti-kid book, right?
No, it's not an anti-kid book. No. It's a fun read, right? And it's a fun audio book to listen to. And that was my objective. My objective was to make this enjoyable, but also make it so that people think about these topics in a serious kind of way. And then bridge the gap to say, yeah, I respect people who don't have kids. I get it. You know, I get it. You may not agree with everything that I say in there, but you'll agree with enough of it to say, yeah, he makes some good points.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you want the listener or reader to take away after they read this book? Like, what's the ultimate, like, thing you want them to take away?
There's a couple of things that I want you to take away. I want people to respect other people's choices in a broad sense, right?
Absolutely.
So whether it's to, you know, be child-free, or whatever life choices that people make, sit down and talk to them and try to understand what those choices are. And never pressure people into doing what you do, because the worst thing that you can do is tell someone that they should be a parent, and then they take your advice, right? And they're a parent, and they're like, oh man, you were wrong.
Absolutely.
Then who suffers? Both parents, and most of all the kid, right?
Kids,
so you got to be thoughtful about that. The other thing is, I want people to be realistic and understanding the challenges that parents go through.
Right.
Because it's a tough job, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not for everybody, and you have to understand, not every kid is going to turn out with a 130 IQ, magna cum laude, in the best school, right? With the best job, right? We don't always get, the Barack Obamas or the Winston Churchills or whoever you admire, right? We don't always get those people, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes we end up with what's that character Dave Chappelle used to play? He was the crackhead.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yes. Yes. That's real. That's real.
Yeah. Sometimes you end up with the crackhead, right? Stealing out of your purse. You know what I mean?
Right.
So let's have those honest conversations, right? About the crackhead who ends up stealing out your purse.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I know I've seen the book on Amazon. Where else can they get the book? Because I think you have a website. Is that correct?
I do have a website, but the website is actually where I sell my merch. So the website is childfreeandhavingfun.com.
Okay.
And to get the book on Amazon is really easy. I have a copy of the book. Yeah. To get the book. Yeah. It's the book is called Forget Having Kids, I'm Having Fun. And the URL is childfreebook.com, childfreebook.com. And I promise you'll enjoy this book, whether you get an audio, whether you get a paperback or you get the ebook, you're gonna enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Just don't listen to it around your kids.
No, you said this is for everyone but kids.
Everybody but kids, because you don't want the kids looking at the title being like, "Mommy, you trying to get rid of me, Daddy? Trying to tell me something?"
Right. What's really good?
Right.
Well, listen, our thanks go out to Dane Reid for joining us tonight. And for information on his book, Forget Having Kids, I'm Having Fun, please visit our website, thestephenknightshow.com, and we will be right back after this.